Well, a very good evening, everyone, and welcome to the second meet of the 2022 New South Wales Milers Series here from the Crest. I'm Matt Whitbread for Athletics New South Wales, and we are going out this evening on both live stream and here at the stadium. Have a look at the timetable for this evening's events. So we'll be kicking off in a few minutes' time with the men's 400 metre hurdles. About 10 past 7, we'll have the women's 400 metre hurdles. That'll be followed by two races in the steeplechase. The first will be the men's 2,000 metre steeplechase at 84 centimetres for the older junior boys. And at 7:40, we'll have a combined 3,000 and 2,000 metre steeple with the women's 3,000 open, as well as the men's and women's 2,000 junior and masters steeples, but all at 76 centimetres. At about 8 o'clock, we'll have the women's 400 metre graded races. That'll be followed by the men's 400 metre graded races, and then the 800 graded races will kick off at about 20 past 8, with the A races going at about 8:45. The 1,500 metre graded races will kick off at about 9 o'clock, with the 2A races wrapping up at about 9:32. So that's the timetables for this evening's event. We're just waiting for the 400 metre hurdles to get set up. A few different heights in this event. So stick with us and we'll bring you that shortly. So for those here in the stadium, there's no check-in per se. You should just go straight to your event site about 10 or 15 minutes prior to your event taking place. There we go. Sorry, just fixing an audio setting there. For those in the stadium here, there's no athlete check-in, so you should just go to your event start area down here at the start-finish line about 10 or 15 minutes prior to your event getting underway. We'll just have a look again at the timetable for the evening. So the first event, which we'll get away in a few minutes' time, is the men's 400 metre hurdles. That'll be followed by the women's 4 hurdles. We've then got a couple of steeplechase events. The first 7:25 will be the 84 centimetres for the men's 2K. And then there'll be a combined 2K and 3K steeple at 76 centimetres for the open women and the junior men and women, as well as the masters men. That's a 7:40. At 8 o'clock, the graded 400 metre races will get underway. That'll be followed by the 800 metre races at 20 past 8, with the A races going at 8:45. And 9 p.m. we'll see the start of the 1500 metre graded races, followed by the A races at 9:32. So we'll just have a look at the start list here for the first race of the evening, the men's 400 metre hurdles. Uchina Ebgu goes in lane number 1 for Bankstown Athletics. James Harden for Knox, coached by Matt Fowler, in lane 2. Dom Pinozzo of UTS Norths in 3. Robbie Cullen of Cherrybrook in 4, coached by Nicky Janicki. Gartha Sanchez of Sydney Pacific, coached by Tony Morphus, in 5. Matt Hunt of UTS Norths, coached by Ron Bendel, in 6. And Julian Lee, also of Norths, coached by Andy Burton, runs in lane number 7. So that's the field for the men's 400 metre hurdles. Okay, so we're just about right for a start in the men's 400 metre hurdles. So cleanly away in the first event of the second meet of the New South Wales Milers Series for 2021-22. The 4 hurdles. Pretty quickly away on the outside is Matt Hunt for UTS Norths, as you would expect. And he's picking up the stagger on Julian Lee outside him. Just a bit of a stumble there at the hurdle from the Knox athlete, James Harden, that is. But as I head up the back, it's Hunt who's picking up the stagger on Julian Lee on his outside, both of UTS Norths. And Hunt now trying to pull level with Lee. The Ron Bendel athlete taking the lead of the race as they come into the final straight. Cherrybrooks, Robbie Cullen going back on the inside of the track, and all the way over on the inside, Bankstown's Uchenna Egbu running strongly as well. But Hunt pulling into the lead now, just ahead of Lee and a fast finishing Cullen. But Hunt will be too good for them. Takes out the first race of the night from his stablemate Julian Lee. And Cherrybrooks, Robbie Cullen back on the inside, runs third in the race. So there'll be a little bit of a break in the program now to change the hurdle heights. Drop down to 76 centimetres for the women's race. For those watching at home, we'll just have a look at the start list in the ladies. So Isabella Guthrie is the first of 3 UTS North athletes in the race. She goes with Charlotte Gratteau and Eva Bates. 2 with the Andy Burton stable and 1 with Angus McIntyre. Susie Douglas runs for the University of New South Wales in lane number 5, another Ron Bendel athlete. Indiana Pye for Essex West goes in lane number 6. And Destiny Magoon for Westfields rounds out the field, coached by Dan Succi in lane number 7. So just the final changes being made to the heights for the women's 400 metre hurdles now. So starters make their way back down. We'll just have another quick run through this start list. So in lane number 2, Isabella Guthrie for UTS Norths. Just inside her 2 club mates of Charlotte Greteau and Eva Bates. Susie Douglas runs in lane number 5 for the University of New South Wales. Indiana Pye for Essex West in lane number 6. And Destiny Magoon for Westfields rounds out the field of 6 running in lane number 7. It's the field for the women's 400 metre hurdles. So off we go in the women's 400 metre hurdles from the inside out. Guthrie, Greteau, Bates, Douglas, Pye and Magoon. And probably UNSW, Susie Douglas was the best away of them in the centre of the track in that black crop top and running very, very strongly. Also getting up well is Charlotte Greteau of UTS North, 17-year-old, coached by Andy Burton. And I think it's Greteau who's surged to the back, down the back straight the first time. Douglas, the fast starting. Douglas now running in second. And the field has spread out quite a lot here, but a very strong front running performance from Greteau. As she comes into the straight now. Pardon me, it's Isabella Guthrie who's running in lane number 2. First of the 3 UTS North athletes in this race, but Guthrie, too good for them and a fine return to racing for her. Susie Douglas of the University of New South Wales will come in second, and Eva Bates of Norths will come over the line in third, just ahead of Indiana Pye of Essex West. Destiny Magoon of Westfields was home, and then Greteau for Norths rounds out the field of 6. But nice run there from Isabella Guthrie. PB of 60.1. So we'll wait for some times to come through. But nice running there from Guthrie. So for anyone here in the stadium, if you're able to help out getting the hurdles to the outside of the track, that would be great. Need to get these hurdles clear so we can get the steeplechase on. So we have some results from those first races. Confirmation of Matt Hunt's win for UTS Norths in the 400 hurdles at 58.9. Julian Lee, second home for UTS in 59.5. Robbie Cullen for Cherrybrook in 59.9. Uchenna Ebgu for Bankstown next over the line in 61.2. James Harden of Knox Grammar in 61.9. And Gautier Sanchez rounded out the field for Sydney Pacific in 63.1. Confirmation of the winning times in the women's event. Isabella Guthrie first over the line for UTS Norths in 60 flat. So some good running from her right around her PB territory. Susie Douglas for UNSW next over the line in 63.9. Eva Bates of UTS Norths in 67.9. Indiana Pye for Essex West in 69 flat. Destiny Magoon Westfields in 71.3. And Charlotte Gratteau of UTS Norths in 72.6 rounds out the field for the women's 400 metre hurdles. Next event on the track will be the men's 2,000 metre steeplechase. Just a small field here, but not a lot of steeple opportunities so far this season for athletes to qualify for nationals, so everyone keen to jump on this event. And Cooper Hawley of Sydney Pacific will be the first athlete in that field. Georgia Phillips is a typo, she'll be in the women's. Nicholas Woodhouse for Ride will run in hip number 3, and Lachlan Haining of Kembla Joggers will be the third athlete in the field wearing hip number 4. So the steeple not too far away from a start. We have the 2K event first in the boys, and then we'll have a combined 3K and 2K steeple for the junior women and men, as well as a couple of masters male athletes. Okay, so the boys are just heading down now for the start of the boys 2K steeplechase. Looks like we've got a slimmed down field here. We're due to have Cooper Hawley of Sydney Pacific, Nick Woodhouse of Ryde, and Lachlan Haining of Kembla. And it looks like we've got Woodhouse and Haining, but not Cooper Hawley. So a small field of two here, but important for the boys to be able to qualify for nationals. And we are just about right for a start. So if we go in the boys 2K steeple, just a couple of athletes here, but an important opportunity for them to be able to qualify for the Australian junior titles to be held in Sydney in a couple of months' time. So Nick Woodhouse, 16 years of age at Ryde Athletics, coached by Matt Woodhouse, who I'm going to guess is his dad. PB of 450 in the 2K steeple set all the way back in 2018. And a 5 flat he's run this season at the state relays. So that's Nick Woodhouse, the 16-year-old, in the dark blue strip. And Lachlan Haining of Kembla Joggers, coached by Vicky and Pat McPhillips, with a PB of 6:45. You can see him just going over the water jump there. So 5 laps with the 2K steeple here, and just over 5 laps around the track with the inside water jump here at the Crest. For anyone else here in the stadium who is in the next steeple race, you need to be down at the marshalling area now getting your hip numbers, please. But about 78 seconds there or so for Kembla's Haining. So he leads through the first lap in the steeple, just ahead of Woodhouse there. You can see the gap opening up there, but different age groups for these guys. Haining in the under 18s and Woodhouse in the under 17s. Both of these heights held at 84 centimetres. Of course, some recent changes made by World Athletics to the steeple heights as clubs and tracks scramble to drill holes in barriers and comply with the new heights. So this race necessitated by the under 16 and 17 boys being at the under 17 and under 18 boys being at the 84 centimetre height, and those to come a little bit later on will be at the 76 centimetre height. Be a much bigger field in that, with the open women as well as the junior boys and girls all running together, as well as a couple of masters men as well. So through just over 800 metres here, 2:39 on the clock for Lachlan Haining. So probably just outside his PB schedule at the moment, based on the information we have here. And we can see Woodhouse coming over the line now as well for Ryde. Some good racing to come a little bit later tonight as well, with the 800 and 1500 metre races, the two traditional main events of the Milers program. 1500s in particular, with some strong fields. Aidan Hobbs comes down from Queensland in the men's, and some typical Sydney names in there: Kieran Tall, Rob Dickinson, Cameron Gill, Hamish Longworth, Benny Bishop's in there as well, Joe Burgess and James Healy. Stefan Music will run for Randwick Botany, Ben Jagger in this field as well. Kieran Rushton's exploded on the scene for Run Crew recently as well. And in the women's, a good field there as well. Kira Tui's in there, Ruby Madden, Mia Tui as well. Zoe Woods for West, so some talented juniors in particular. Just a bit of a stumble there at the water jump for young Woodhouse, but he's back up and still going, having a bit of a laugh, so that's good to see. So just watching Lachlan Haining navigate the water jump for the second to last time. Running quite well here solo, obviously no pacing help for Lachlan. About 5:15 on the clock now with a PB of 6:45. He's got about 85 seconds or so to get around. Going to be about an 78, 80 second last lap. He'll need to run in order to... G'day, guys. In order to be on PB schedule. So we'll keep an eye on the clock there for Lachlan. And just looking back to Nick Woodhouse now getting over the water jump well for the second to last time. So Nick will get the welcome sound of the bell when he comes across the line. But we'll just look over the back straight now. And Haining for Kembla joggers just ticking through 6 minutes on the clock now. So going to have to close very quickly to be on that PB schedule. Probably just outside. Coming up to the water jump for the last time now. And well over. So Haining into the straight. Going to be just outside his PB, it looks like. But nonetheless, a very good run solo for Lachlan Haining of Kembla joggers. The Vicky and Pat McPhillips athlete will come down and take out the 2,000 metre steeple here in the under 18 division. Well done, Lachlan. Just outside of PB schedule, probably about 6:50 or thereabouts, about 5 or 6 seconds outside of his PB. And just navigating the water jump for the last time is Nick Woodhouse for Ride Athletics. Quick look at the watch as he comes up to the last barrier on this 2K steeple course. And well navigated. So Nick Woodhouse will come down and round out a small but select field for the junior boys 2K steeple. Nice running there, about 7:50 unofficial. So nicely done there for the junior boys steeple. The remaining steeple athletes should be up at the start now. We'll have a quick look at the start list here. So Ben Leon, there's a few different divisions, if you like, within this race. There's all happening at 76 centimetres, of course, but there's the men's 2K steeple with some juniors and masters, as well as the women's 2K and a few athletes in the women's 3K steeple as well. So there'll be a bit going on here. Ben Leonuzzi for Sutherland runs with Dylan Alabush for Essex West and McLeay Kesby for Kembla. as the 3 junior boys in the under-16s in the men's 2K steeple. They're joined by Masters compatriots Brad Sharp and Nick Terranova of UTS and Hills, respectively. In the women's 2K steeple, we have Sophie Slater of Essex West, Rebecca Solomon of Sydney Athletics Academy, Kate Geeson of Kembla, running with her clubmate Celeste Carolyn. And also from Kembla is Jordan Martin. Hannah Roots will run in hip number 9, and Grace Beck of Essex West will run in hip number 10. Georgia Phillips also goes for Ride Athletics in the 2,000 metre event. And in the 3K steeple, a couple more in the 2K, we've got Eloise Boys of Run Crew and Deborah Jennen of UTS North, the Masters athlete. And in the women's 3K steeple, 3 athletes with Allegra McGiven of Randwick Botany Harriers, coached by Jordan Williams, Olivia Civilis of Athletics Wollongong, and Ash Gardner of Kembla Joggers. So quite a big field of 18 in this steeple race across various age groups, all the way from the under-16s through to the Masters. You can see on screen there the athletes just getting their run-throughs in over the barriers. And there'll be a couple of starts here. The 3K will start over on the back straight, and the 2K steeple will start here on the front straight. Pretty much back on schedule now. So for those in the stadium, you can assume we're running to timetable, which means that the women's 400 metre athletes in the B and A races should be coming down to the marshalling area in about the next 10 minutes or so. So those races due to get underway at about 8 o'clock. So for those in the ladies 400, please make sure you're down to marshalling on time so we can stay on timetable. George. So good to see quite a big steeple field here. 18 will line up across the various divisions. Athletes in this race all the way from 14 up to some of the Masters athletes in their 60s. So great spread across both the 2 and 3K. So it looks like we're just about right for a start in both the 2K and the 3K steeple. So off we go in the mixed 2 and 3K steeple. Big mix of ages and both the men's and the women's going in this event. Hannah Roots quite quickly away for Camden in the 2K event. And that's Allegra McGivern of Randwick Botany, coached by Jordan Williams, going out very quickly in the 3K event, just ahead of Olivia Sevillas of Wollongong and Ash Gardner of Kembla Joggers. McGivern with a PB of 7:08 for the 2K steeple in the under-17s. Now moves up to the 3,000 metre event. Sevillas with a PB of 12:13 over the 3K and 12:47 for Gardner. So maybe a first attempt at the 3K event for McGivern. Be interesting to see what time she can put on the board based on that 7:08 PB set back in March of last year at the New South Wales Junior Championships. Just having a look on screen now, so that's Rebecca Solomon and Sophie Slater of Sydney Athletics Academy and West, respectively. Sophia Slater of West, second in the New South Wales Championship and fourth at the Nationals. Rebecca Solomon of Sydney Athletics Academy, second in the National Juniors last year in the 2K steeple. So some good credentialed athletes in that field. Just having a look over at the boys' race in the juniors over the 2K. It looks like McLeay Kesby of Kembla Joggers, coached by Vicky Phillips, is put himself in a prominent position there. PB of 6:39. He's also a silver medalist at national level over the steeple. And in the women's 3K event, it's still Allegra McGivern out the front, and you can see there a gap of probably 60 or 70 metres or so opened up to Olivia Sevillas of Athletics Wollongong.
Gromers that parked up the top, they're going to lock him in.
Just an announcement for those in the stadium here. The people on live stream won't be too concerned, but there's a grey Mazda parked at the top of the ground with registration EEY27T. If you don't move your car very quickly, you're about to get locked out. So locked in, pardon me. So if that's your car, head up there and get it moved. But back to the racing. Good to see there. That's Brad Sharp of UTS, one of the Masters athletes running in the 2K Masters event. A couple of these Masters men, I think, having a first crack at the steeple. So good to see them out having a crack. As McGivern just comes through the first barrier, still maintaining that gap to Sevillas in the ladies 3K event. And just having a look back now to the men's 2K event. So that's Kembla's Kesby just running in front of Benjamin Lenarduzzi of Sutherland, coached by Jordan Anderson. They're coming through the line now in about 4:10 or thereabouts. Good to see a big field in this steeple. Hasn't been a lot of opportunities so far this season to race the steeple with COVID affecting some of the events, but good to see a big field of 18 out in this one. Brad Sharp just coming on the screen there and running through the first of the barriers, and then just sitting in behind him is Celeste Carolyn of Kembla Joggers, PB of 7:50 set at the All Schools Championships late last year. Record number of entries at the All Schools at SOPAC, one of the biggest community sporting events back after the second wave lockdown. That's the Hills athlete as well, Nick Terranova, I think that is, of Hills, having a go at the steeple. And here's our two juniors coming through again, Kesby and Leonardi. And they're actually picking up the bell now in the 2K event. So 6:39 the PB for Kesby. Looks like he's going to be just outside that schedule tonight. Went through the bell in about 5:35 or so, so would have to close very quickly to be on PB schedule. Also be first race of the season for a lot of these athletes, so something to build to with Nationals coming up in Sydney a little bit later on this year, a couple of months away. Good surge there from Ben Leonardi of Sutherland, the Jordan Anderson athlete. You can see now him coming around to the water jump for the last time. So it'll be just outside the PB schedule, but Macleay Kesby of Kembla Joggers safely navigating the last barrier. And we'll come down and take out the boys 2K steeple with a strong finish. And he's just on the front of Leonardi, who's just going to come round right on that 7-minute mark. Sydney Athletics Academy's Rebecca Solomon, I think this is, coming in to win the women's event, coached by Jack McPhee and Joe Burgess, I think helps her with her steepling. Just coming in behind her is Sophia Slater, 6 West. So good battle there between the two young ladies for that 2K. And a good finish there from Georgia Phillips of Ryde as well, coached by Deb Walsham. 7:29 her PB, so not far outside that at all, probably about 7:39, 7:40 there. There's some more of the juniors come along. Here's Brad Sharp of UTS Norths, first of our Masters athletes home. Going to be just inside 8 minutes, so 7:58, 59. I think that might be Brad's first crack at the steeple, so well done. And Allegra McGiven still leading the women's 3,000 metre open race. This is the Run Crew athlete in hip number 11, Eloise Boys of Run Crew, coming in to finish the 2K event. 8:40 her PB, so that'll be a personal best for Eloise Boys. Well done. So mainly just our 3K athletes out there now. Allegra McGiven, Olivia Civilis and Ash Gardner of Ramwick, Wollongong and Kembla respectively. And this is Ash Gardner of Kembla, just coming over the line now with about 9:15 or thereabouts on the clock. But Allegra McGiven running very well for Ramwick Botany, just coming down the start-finish straight now. And Allegra will pick up the bell here in the 3K event. Still holding a form very well, running very strongly. And she's got a lead of about 140 metres or thereabouts over Olivia Civilis of Wollongong, the 18-year-old. 12.13 the PB we have here for Sevillas, and if that's the case, that's going to be significantly lowered here. So Sevillas threw the bell in about 10.10, 10.11 against a personal best of 12.13, so that's in serious jeopardy. But Allegram are given into the straight for the last time, navigating the final barrier, and does so nicely. So Allegram are given will come down and take out the women's 3,000 metre steeple. Well done to her. About 11.06, 11.07 unofficial. Wait for the official times to come through shortly. And Olivia Sevillas is on track to run a big personal best here as she comes into the straight, the 18-year-old from Wollongong. So great performance here from Olivia Sevillas. Going to wipe a significant amount of time off her personal best, the better part of a minute, and comes over the line in 11.43. So just the final athlete in our 3K event here, Ash Gardner for Kembla Joggers. 12.47's her PB, so not too far away from that either here. Quick finish might have that on the cards here. Probably going to be just outside, but Gardner now coming into the straight, about to navigate the final barrier. And does so cleanly. So Ash Gardner going to be just outside her PB of 12.47, but very good running nonetheless. Did a lot of the work by herself and comes over the line about 12.49, 12.50 unofficial to round out the mixed 2 and 3K steeple event. So that does it for the barrier and hurdle races of the night. A couple of events added to the traditional milers program here to provide athletes with some competition opportunities. Same can be said for the women's and men's graded 400 metre races. They'll be next on the program. So if you're in the women's or the men's 400 metres, you should have done your marshalling already. If you haven't yet, get down there and do your marshalling. The women's graded races due to get underway pretty much now once we've cleared these steeple barriers off the track. So there'll be a B race in the women's as well as an A race, and the men's will go down to C in the 400. So we'll just have a look at the start list here for the women's B 400 metre race. Virginia Cole of the Blue Mountains due to run in lane number 2. Rani Sharma of Cherrybrook in 3. Eva York of Bankstown in 4, coached by Bailey Holland. Alexa Matheson of Port Hacking, coached by Brett Matheson, due to run in lane number 5. So a small field of 4 due to get underway in the women's B 400 metres. We have some official results as well from the first of our 2 steeple races. Just the 2 starters there for the junior boys. Lachlan Haining of Kembla in 6.48.3, and Nick Woodhouse of Ryde, second in that event in 7.50 and a tenth. Weather conditions just starting to cool a bit here at the Crest. It'll be very nice for distance running in not too long. As the lights start to come on. Still a little bit of breeze around, but that should be well and truly gone by the time we get to the A8 and 1500 metre races a little bit later on. So the ladies just getting sorted out here for the start of the B women's 400 metres. Okay, so not too far away from a start here in the women's 400 metre B race. Just have another quick run through the start list. In lane number 2, Virginia Cole of Blue Mountains. In lane 3, Rani Sharma of Cherrybrook. In lane 4, Eva York of Bankstown. And Alexia Matheson of Port Hacking rounds out the field in lane number 5. That's the field for the women's B 400 metres.
On your mark.
So from the inside out, Cole, Sharma, York and Matheson pretty cleanly away. And probably on the inside of the track going the best of them at the moment is Virginia Cole of the Blue Mountains. She's already looking to pick up the stagger and in fact has done so on the bulk of the field here. Some good running up the back straight as well from the Cherrybrook athlete Rani Sharma. But Virginia Cole at the moment for Bankstown, just too good for them on the inside of the track. They're swinging around now. And Cole just starting to tie up a bit, and Cherrybrook's Sharma coming at her. Gap further back then to Bankstown's York and Matheson. So Cole trying to hang on from Sharma. Sharma coming at her with about 40 metres to go. But it looks like Cole is just going to do enough to hang on from Sharma, and will do so for the Blue Mountains against Cherrybrook. Gap back then to Eva York of Bankstown, and Alexa Matheson rounds out the field for Port Hacking, the young 11-year-old, with a bright future ahead. So some nice running there from Virginia Cole. Went out very quickly and tied up, but did enough to hang on. Have a look now at the start list for the women's 400 metre A race. In lane number 12, Sydney Burrell of Hills District, coached by Graham Garnett. In lane 2, Kaisha Prachiak of UTS Norths. Jen Cowie of the University of New South Wales goes for Lindsay Watson in lane number 3. Jasmine Guthrie of UTS Norths for Angus McIntyre in 4. Sally Guthrie for Sydney University in 5. Poppy Doran of Adamstown runs in lane number 6. In 7 is Raquel Albino for Hornsby District. And Polly McAvoy rounds out a full field of 8 for Sutherland, coached by Davina Strauss in lane number 8. That's the field for the women's 400 metre A race.
On your mark. Well, I sure hope so.
So a full field cleanly away. Jen Cowie out quite well for the University of New South Wales in the centre of the track. Also is Prachiak on her inside for Norths. They're running very strongly down the back straight. And Cowie, and also going very well for Sydney University, Sally Guthrie in the centre of the track. Now the Norths athlete Prachiak getting up on the inside and running very strongly. So is Jasmine Guthrie of Norths in the centre of the track. Cowie just starting to fade a little bit in the middle of the race, but trying to come back. So 4 in it as they swing around into the home straight. It's Prachiak and Guthrie, the two Norths athletes, battling it out for the lead. Prachiak's going to just lead into the straight from Guthrie. Cowie coming back in at them. And Sally Guthrie of Sydney Uni coming hard down the outside. It's a battle of the Norths athletes, though, between Prachiak and Jasmine Guthrie. And Prachiak just going to edge out Jasmine Guthrie. Jen Cowie then got over the top of Sally Guthrie for third. But good solid running there from a strong field. The first 4 in particular running very, very well. But Prachiak too good for them in the middle of the track. 54.63 her PB. Wait for some results to filter through, and we'll bring those to you as soon as we have them.
I grabbed my phone in my bag. It was a good one.
Okay, so not far away from a start now in the first of 3 men's 400 metre races. This first race, the C race, has a full field of 8. Brody Folkes in 1. Hamish Elliott for St Ignatius College Riverview in 2. Giri Katagayan for the King's School in 3. Wal Albino for Hornsby in 4. Lucas Dong for Essex West in 5. Oscar Dempsey runs in lane number 6 for Riverview. Sam Kay for West in 7. And Chi Zilly rounds out the field of 8 on the outside.
On your mark.
Cleanly away in the first of 3 of the men's 400 metre races. The King's athlete, Giri Katagayan, was very quickly away on the inside. Has already picked up the stagger on Hornsby's Albino on his outside. And he's running very quickly. On the far outside as well for Norths is Chi Zilly, I think it is, who has absolutely bolted up the back straight and is leading this field very comfortably. The King's athlete, Katagayan, running very strongly and has the rest of the field covered, but is an absolute bolter from Chi Zilly, who leads by about 10-15 metres on Katagayan as they come into the straight. He's starting to tie up now. Zilly went out very quickly. Katagayan coming at him, but I don't think he's going to be able to close up the gap. And Chi Zilly of UTS Norths comes home and takes out the men's C race just ahead of Katagayan. Good race going on for 3rd, but that'll be taken out by Riverview's Hamish Elliott back on the inside. But a bold front-running performance there. Van Niekerk style on the outside from Chi Zilly, using the outside lane, not worrying about anyone else and coming home very strongly. Have some official results from the women's 400 metre races. Virginia Cole, confirmation of her win in the B race in 63.60. Rani Sharma, 2nd for Cherrybrook in 63.9. Eva York, 3rd for Bankstown in 67.9. And Matheson, 4th for Port Hacking in 70.10. In the A race, confirmation of Prakayak's win for Norths in 55.3. Jasmine Guthrie, 2nd for Norths in 55.3 as well. And so that was determined by the judge. Jen Cowie of UNSW, 3rd in 55.7. Guthrie Sally for Sydney University in 56.6. Sydney Burrell of Hills in 57.60. And Doran and Albino rounded out the field in 61.3 and 66.30. We'll have a quick look at the start list now for the men's 400 B race. And from the inside out, Chris Yang of St George, Luke Boys of Run Crew, Aaron Jeffrey of UTS Norths, Lachlan Ash of Campbelltown, Jack Baker of UTS Norths, and Travis Hargrave of Essex West. That's the field for the men's 400 metre B race.
On your mark.
So off they go in the men's 400 metre B race. Looks like a scratching with no boys in the race, but St George's Chris Yang quite quickly away on the inside of the track. Otherwise, a pretty even stagger as they go up the back straight. Jeffrey and Ash both running well for Norths and Campbelltown. But they're all pretty even as they head up the back straight. Campbelltown's Lachlan Ash running quite strongly. Luke Boys for Norths, I think it is running well in the centre of the track. And now St George's Chris Yang gets into his own running as he ranges up on the inside. But for the time being, it's Jeffrey of Norths running very strongly in the middle. They're coming at him, though, Ash and Yang. Yang with the big dive at the end, but won't be good enough to get there. Jeffrey, I think, would just hold him off, notwithstanding the angle we're on here from Yang and Lachlan Ash for Campbelltown. will round out the top three in the men's 400 metre B race. Some results from that men's C race, the one before. Cheezilly, confirmation of his win in 52.4. Giri Katagayan of Kings in 54.6. Hamish Elliott of Riverview in 56.5. Lucas Dong of West in 56.6. Wal Albino of Hornsby 56.8. Brody Folkes 58.3. Oscar Dempsey of Riverview 62.50. And Sam Kay of West next over the line in 63.50. Not too far away from a start now in the men's A race in the 400. Boys just getting their blocks sorted out now. We'll have a look at the start list in a moment. So very solid field here for the men's 400 metre A race. From the inside out, Corey Firminger of UTS North, coached by Penny Gillies in 1. Ian Halpin, the Australian representative, World Relays for Bankstown, coached by Mike Hurst in lane 2. Jordan Sarmento of North, coached by John Quinn in lane number 3. Josh Atkinson of the Hills District runs in the centre of the track in 4. Zen Clark will run in lane number 5 for Norths, first of a trio of Norths athletes. Mark Focus next in 6, and Timothy Sankey, also of the All Reds, coached by John Quinn in lane number 7. Max Holmes rounds out a full field of 8 in for the University of New South Wales. That is the field for the men's 400 metre A race, certainly one of the strongest assembled in New South Wales so far this season, and they're in the hands of the starter.
On your mark.
So off they go in the men's 400 metre A race. Really good race to watch here. Halpin away quite strong in the centre of the track, just running up on the inside of Sarmento. Atkinson quickly away for Hills as well, and he's going the best of them at the moment. Sarmento running strongly up the back, and Halpin now starting to pick up the stagger on his home track in that light singlet of Bankstown. Swinging around through the 200 now, and Halpin getting up onto the shoulder of Sarmento and goes past him. But Atkinson still out the front. Looks to be a battle between Atkinson and Halpin as they swing into the straight. Halpin ranging up at Atkinson. They're the two clearly in front. Halpin pulling in front now, I fancy, as they come up the straight. Halpin probably just with a nose in front will dive and win by about a metre on Atkinson. Good race between Firminger and Atkinson, and Sarmento back for third. The two UTS North athletes, and I think Firminger just got over the top of Sarmento, and there was good runs in behind them, but a very fast starting Josh Atkinson just run down late by Ian Halpin, who had a good second half of the race. So that completes the 400 metre races for the evening. We've got the 800 metre graded races due to get underway very quickly. So if you're in any of the 800 metre races, we need you to come down and get your marshalling done. They will be followed by the 1500, so just the traditional milers events to go for the evening.
I'll be back. I'm going to go to the toilet.
We've had some more results come through, so the official results from the men's 400 metre B race. Confirmation of Aaron Jeffries' win for Norths in 49.7. Chris Yang of St George second in 49.9. Lachlan Ash of Campbelltown 51 flat, as was Jack Baker. And Travis Hargrave of West in 52.10. Men's 400 metre A race, Ian Halpin and Josh Atkinson both with a 46.7, but split by the judge in favour of Halpin. Jordan Sarmento of Norths was the first of four Norths athletes over the line with Firminger, Focus and Clark. They ran 48.4, 48.5, 48.8 and 49.3 respectively. Max Holmes of the University of New South Wales rounded out the field in 53. So we're now moving into our 800 metre races for the night. First up will be the men's D 800 metres. And a small field here with Jarvis Brealey of Sutherland, Shay Casillas of Westfields, Cooper Rob Jackson of Parramatta, and York McManus of Helensborough Little Athletics. That's the field for the men's 800 metre D race.
On your mark.
So off they go in the first of our four men's 800 metre races tonight from the inside out. Brealey, Casillas, Rob Jackson and McManus. And it's the Sutherland athlete, Jarius Brealey, the 15-year-old, who looks to be going to the front of the field alongside the Parramatta City athlete, Cooper Rob Jackson. He will actually lead as they head up the back straight for the first time. And lead of about 5 metres or so as they run through 200. And looks like Rob Jackson wants to get on with this for the first time. Little gap back then to McManus of Helensborough. And young Shay Casillas of Westfields. But Parramatta City's Rob Jackson will lead them through the bell in about 66, 67 or so. Bit of a gap then back to Brealey. Then comes McManus and Casillas. And Casillas of Westfield's actually just getting around McManus now to put himself into third. Going to get after Brealey of Sutherland in second. You can see the height difference there. all-comers style racing with all of the ages mixed in together. And a move now for second with young Casillas, the 12-year-old from Westfields, moving into second and actually looking to get after the leader, Cooper Rob Jackson. And he's going to get up onto his shoulder with about 200 to run as they pass through 147, 148 on the clock. And there is a change at the lead now with young Shay Casillas of Westfields putting himself at the front of this field and starting to open up a gap about 10 metres or so. He's picked up on them. PB of 228, which is in big trouble here. Shay Casillas, the youngster from Westfields, just 12 years old, with a PB of 228, but not for long as they just tick through 220. And Shay Casillas will come home to take a win and a personal best, just ahead of Brealey. And then the fast-starting Rob Jackson for Parramatta City tied up in the last lap. And McManus will round out the field of four in the men's 800-metre D race. But nice running there from Shay Casillas, who will pick up a win and a personal best for his trouble. Have a look now at the start list for the women's 800-metre C race. Deborah Drennan of UTS Norths runs in hip number 1. Rosalie Floyd Kerr of Illawong, coached by Michael Dooley, in hip number 2. Annabelle York of Home Club Bankstown, coached by Bailey Holland, in 3. Madison Oscroft of Kembla, coached by Vicky McPhillips, in 4. Leah Fowler of Sutherland in 5. Madeline Baptist of Westfields, coached by Brett Matheson, in hip number 6. And Brooke Cross of Illawong Revesby rounds out the field of 7 for the women's 800-metre C race. So we just do a final check to make sure we've got everyone. Just a reminder for those in the stadium, if you're in one of these 800-metre races, you should be down doing your marshalling, getting your hip numbers sorted right now.
Where else would you rather be?
So it looks like we're missing a few starters here. So a few scratchings here in 1, 4, 5 and 6.
On your mark.
So a slim down field will run in the 800-metre C race. Rosalie Floyd Kerr of Illawong in hip number 2. Annabelle York for Bankstown in 3. And Brooke Cross of Illawong rounds out the field on the outside. A couple of youngsters here, ages 14 through 11. So you expect to see a bit of a gap here. And there is a gap as they head up the back straight for the first time. Rosalie Floyd Kerr, the taller figure of Illawong, wearing hip number 2 at the front of the field by about 15 metres or so there. Just sitting in front of Bankstown's Annabelle York. And Brooke Cross then, the young 11-year-old from Illawong, just sitting back behind her. So coming into the straight for the first time is Rosalie Floyd Kerr. She's going to come through and take the bell in around about 67, 68 or so. PB of 239 at all schools late last year. So if she keeps this up, that PB will be long gone by the end of the night. Annabelle York for Bankstown also with a PB of 237, so she's probably closer to her PB schedule. But let's see if Floyd Kerr can hold this pace. The second lap went out very quickly in the first 200. If she can hold the pace, should be on for a personal best here. Just heading up the back straight for the last time now through the 200 to go, with about 149, 150 on the clock. That gap might just be starting to close up a little bit to York. York actually with the faster PB of 237. Looks like Floyd Kerr's had a good Christmas, New Year block. Coming in here on PB schedule. So Rosalie, Floyd Kerr for Illawong, the 14-year-old, comes into the straight for the last time, 239, her personal best, which should be going here if she can hang on. Good rally late from Annabelle York of Bankstown, but another personal best and a win for Floyd Kerr. York's also going to run a PB as well by about 2 or 3 seconds. She lowers her mark of 237 down to about 235. And Brooke Cross of Illawong, the young 11-year-old, coming over to round out the field in the women's 800 metre C race. So next event on the track, the men's 800 metre C race. Field of 7, Pat McMahon for Trinity in lane number 1. Jack Richardson for Randwick Botany, coached by Roffey, in 2. Darren Purcell, the Masters Steeple of Athletics East, in lane number 3. Ben Woodhouse of Ryde, coached by Matt Woodhouse, in 4. Jamison Carr of Illawong in 5. Ethan Littlewood of Campbelltown Collegians, coached by Greg Southby, in 6. And Lachlan Wheeler of Sutherland, coached by Jordan Anderson, runs in lane number 7. I think we've got almost a full field, just with the one scratching, it looks like, of Jack Richardson in 2.
On your mark.
Oh yeah, that's it.
So off they go in the men's 800 metre C race. Almost a full field here and a big mix of ages. The juniors and the masters running together. It looks like the Illawong pair going together on the outside. In fact, it's Illawong and Ryde, I think. So the Ryde athlete, Ben Woodhouse, the lighter figure on the inside, just running inside Jamison Carr of Illawong. Little gap back then to Ethan Littlewood as they go through the 200 in probably around about 32, 31 seconds or so. Little gap back then to Darren Purcell, one of the Masters athletes, running for Athletics East. But these two boys happy to run together at the front of the field. Woodhouse and Carr. But the field staying with them. Littlewood just in behind them, and then Purcell. Little gap back then to Pat McMahon. And Sutherland's Lucky Wheeler rounds out the field. So through the bell in about 65, 66 seconds or so. And Ben Woodhouse now just starting to pull out a little bit of a lead there. PB of 210 for him, so he's right on PB schedule. Set at Little A's state titles last year. And Darren Purcell now, the Masters athlete for East, just puts himself into second position. Ethan Littlewood of Campbelltown running in 3rd. And the fast starting Carr is just drifting back in the field and finds himself in 4th. So Woodhouse, the 14-year-old, at the front of the field through 200 to go in about 100 seconds. And he seems to have found another gear in the back half of this race. Darren Purcell's trying to go with him, as is Littlewood, but not enough to get over the top of the youngster at the moment. Purcell still coming at him, but Woodhouse is holding his form nicely into the straight. Grimace on the face. 2:10 is the time we're looking for Woodhouse's PB. Probably going to be just outside that, but some good running from young Woodhouse. Then Purcell, then Lightwood, and the fast starting Carr comes over the line in 4th. And a nice finish there from the Sutherland youngster, Lockie Wheeler, who did enough just to get over the top of young Pat McMahon in a well-contested men's 800 metre C race. powering through these 800 metre races. The next one on the track will be the women's 800 metre B race. And you can see there on screen the start list. So Isabella Baptist for Westfields in lane number 1, coached by Brett Matheson. In 2, Zara McCoy for Sydney Athletics Academy. Chloe Walker for Balmain, coached by Jeremy Roth in lane number 3. Amelia Williams of Run Crew in 4. Sienna Novak of Randwick Botany in 5. Julia Meeker of Ballina in lane number 6, coached by Brad Woods, and Sophie Helene of Run Crew rounds out the field of 7 in the women's 800 metre B race.
You got a well when you qualify in that 400?
What's that?
Kid?
Just keep warm, girls. Is that technical picture photo?
So just a slight technical issue here. Just have a brief hold up, but have this underway shortly.
If he wants a hand time.
So just while we're waiting, we've got a couple of results that have come through. So the women's 800 Metre C race, Rosalie, Floyd, Kerr of Illawong, confirmation of her win in 2:31.5. Annabelle York of Bankstown 2:33.8 and Brooke Carson of Illawong 2:51.6. The men's 800 metre D race, Shay Casillas, confirmation of the youngsters' win for Westfields in 2:24. Jarius Brealey of Sutherland 2:27.3. Cooper Rob Jackson for Parramatta in 2:30 flat and 0.2. And York McManus of Helensburgh in 2:35.3. And we're obviously still just waiting to get underway in the women's 800 metre B race.
On your mark.
So off now, just had a slight technical issue there, but away in the women's 800 metre B race. Slightly slimmed down field here with Walker of Balmain, Williams of Run Crew, Mika of Ballina and Helene of Run Crew making up the field. And Amelia Williams of Run Crew gets to the front, just in the front of Chloe Walker, I think that is, of Run Crew, Balmain going through the 200 in about 33 seconds or so. So quite a fast start here in the women's 800 metre B race. And they're all staying together pretty strongly there. Single file as they come into the straight for the first time. So it is Run Crew's Amelia Williams sitting on the front of the field. Chloe Walker sitting in behind her. Then a little gap back to Julia Mika of Ballina. And Run Crew's Sophie Helene. Through the bell in about 70 seconds flat or so. So some pretty reasonable running there. Amelia Williams PB of 2:23, so she's on PB schedule at this stage. Same PB for Chloe Walker as well of Balmain sitting in behind her. So if the girls can maintain this pace, they'll be on PB tempo. Gap now starting to open up between the front two and the back two. So it's Williams and Walker at the front of the field, followed by Mika and Helene, who have created a battle of their own for third in the race. See, going through the 200 now, clock on screen about 1:48, 1:49, but no change in the running order. It's Williams of Run Crew, coached by Gary Howard, just in the front of Walker of Balmain, coached by Jeremy Roth. And we'll see if Walker's got anything to throw at Williams as they come into the straight. 2:23 is the PB we're looking at for these athletes. Williams trying to hold off Walker, who just pulls a little bit wide, tries to go past her. Good battle for the lead here. Williams of the Run Crew in the all black. Walker of Balmain on the outside, and Walker manages to go past Williams and will pick up the win in about 2:26 or so. They're just outside their PBs, but good running there. Williams shouldn't be disappointed with that. Did a lot of the work out front, did all of the work out front. But Walker with a clever tactical race in behind to take the sit and get the win. So good race there in the women's 800 metre B race. Moving now to the men's 800 metre B. And there's the start list on screen. Idris Burkhardt of Cherrybrook, coached by Valmay Krug in lane number 1. Bailey Latanis of Illawong in lane number 2. Nathan Smith, the first of a Run Crew pair with Alexander Marshall, both coached by Gaz in 3 and 4. Joseph Boyd of Delta in lane number 5. Alex Brunch of Ride, coached by Ross Foster in lane number 6. And Lachlan Harkness of Campbelltown rounds out the field of 7 in this B race of the men's 800 metres.
On your mark.
So off the boys go in the men's B 800 metres. Nice start in the centre of the track there from Alexander Marshall of Run Crew in the yellow shorts. Not sure of their regulation, but we'll let him get away with it. Illawong's athlete, Bailey Latanis, over on the inside, putting himself into a prominent position. Some early moves coming here as they head up the back straight for the first time quickly away. Going to be through the 200 in about 29, 30 seconds or so. And the field just starting to string out into a run crew who's put himself at the front of the field, just on the front of Bailey Latanis of Illawong. Little gap back then to Alexander Marshall of Run Crew in those yellow shorts. And then sitting in behind him is the ride athlete of Brunch, through the bell in about 58, 59 seconds or so as Smith leads them through. And a leading pack of 4 now just starting to break away, with Idris Burkhart of Cherrybrook struggling to hang on to the lead pack, and the rest of the field falling in behind him as well. So just the 4 of them in it as they head up the back straight for the last time. Moves starting to come now as Marshall of Run Crew tries to get up to the shoulder of his teammate in Nathan Smith. Big age gap of almost 30 years between the two of them in all-comer style racing, and the youth wins out here with Marshall going around the shoulder of Smith now with about 150 metres to run. A couple of these youngsters are trying to go with him as well. That's Latanis and Brunch of Run Crew and Ride that are going to stick with him. But Marshall will lead them into the straight for the last time. And big move now coming from Bailey Latanis down the outside for Illawong. Marshall and Latanis going to have a dive at it, and Marshall, I think, will just hang on from Latanis. Good run in behind them from Axel Brunch of Ride. Nathan Smith was bowled early in the race and has hung on for 4th in front of a fast finishing pack behind him. So nice finish there in the men's 800 metre B race. We're going to keep powering through these, and we move now to the women's 800 metre A race. And a big field of 10 here. Sarah Baker leads them out for UTS Norths in 1. Laura Roff is on the start list there in hip number 2 for Randwick Botany, the former national champion. Amy Bennett and Ava Honore and Davina Smith, all of Sutherland, that go next on the track in 3, 4 and 5. Taisha Buchanan of Athletics Wollongong in 6. Ruby Madden of Run Crew in 7. Sophie Schultz of the Hills District in lane number 8. And Claudia Meeker of Balmain in hip number 9. And Adelaide Marshall of Run Crew rounds out a full field of 10 for what is a fine women's 800 metre A race here at the Milers. So great to see the former national champion Laura Roff back on track here in the women's A 800 metres. Look at her on the inside of the track for Randwick Botany. See what shape she's in, the Penny Gillies athlete. They head up the back straight for the first time, and it's a few of these Sutherland youngsters going to look to put themselves into a position of prominence early. Roff happy just to take a sit back inside them. And it's the Sutherland trio of Bennett, Honore and Smith who've all put themselves up quite strongly. And the bus starting to park a little bit now as they go through the first 200 in about 33 seconds or so. You can throw a blanket over the field at the moment. They're pretty tightly bunched together. But it's going to be Amy Bennett that leads them into the straight for the first time. Taisha Buchanan of Wollongong happy just to sit on her outside. Then is Ava Honore in hip number 4. Happy to sit a couple wide. And Laura Roff, the national champion, just sitting in the centre of that pack and is going to have to extricate herself from that, use her racing experience. Through the bell in about 66 seconds or so. Roff happy just to take a sit back on the rail at the moment, looking to get out. It's the Sutherland athlete, Ava Honore, who's gone to the front, just sitting there with Buchanan of Wollongong poised to pounce behind her. Then comes Amy Bennett just in behind them, and Davina Smith also of Sutherland. So 3 Sutherland athletes in the top 4. Here comes Roth, the former national champion, just sitting on the back of this field, through with 200 to go with about 1:38 on the clock. Ava Honore for Sutherland is there, still leading. But here comes Laura Roth of Randwick Botany, the former national champion over the half mile. Shoots to the front of the field with 150 to go. We haven't seen her on the track for a while, but this is a commanding return to racing. Not over yet, though, as Davina Smith ranges out and goes past her Sutherland pair. But Roth with a lead of a couple of metres over Bennett and Smith and Honore. But she's back the champ, Laura Roth. Too good for them. Class prevails in about 2:11. More to come this season. Then Bennett, then Smith, then Honore. Buchanan was bowled early, comes home in 5th. And then a little gap back then to Claudia Meeker, Sophie Schultz and Ruby Madden. And Adelaide Marshall will round out the field for run crew. But a fine performance from the former Australian champion, Laura Roth. A sign of things to come surely this season, with nationals to be held in Sydney in a couple of months' time. Haven't seen her racing for a while. Had to pull out of the first milers meet with just a little niggle that she picked up at training. But great to see Laura Roth back on track and running well. We'll look then to the A race in the men's. A full field of 8 here, ready to go around. And in lane number 1, Paul Raptis of Bankstown Sports, coached by Lindsay Watson. Michael King for Trinity runs into Cameron Musgrove of North Canberra for Des Proctor in 3. Ben Muston of Sydney Pacific for John Patchett in 4. Rowan Laurenday of Illawong in lane number 5. Ben Thomas of Randwick Botany. Another Jeremy Roth athlete in 6. Isaac Shaw of Kembla Joggers runs in lane number 7. And Lachlan Baptist of Westfields rounds out the field in lane number 8. That's the field for the men's 800 metre A race.
On your mark.
So just the one scratching with no Baptist in lane 8, but a solid field here as well for the men's 800 metre A race. And a pretty even start. Lauren Day of Illawong maybe just poking his nose in front as they head up the back straight for the first time. Just a little bit of a gap back then to Cameron Musgrove of Des Proctor's squads. Great supporters of these events. Ramwick's Ben Thomas also putting himself up into a position of prominence. Ben Muston of Sydney Pacific sitting in there as well, along with Isaac Shaw of Kembla. So that's a leading pack of 5. Tiny gap back then to Michael King of Trinity, and Paul Raptis of Home Club Bankstown rounds out the field as they come through with 500 metres to run. But Lauren Day on the front of the field, about 44 on the clock, just sitting in front of Muston of Sydney Pacific. Also in there is Ben Thomas of Randwick, splitting the 2. Musgrove is boxed back on the rail. Will need to get out from there. Through the bell in about 55 seconds or so. Lauren Day commanding the lead at the moment. Just sitting in front of Randwick's Ben Thomas. Musgrove has now managed to extricate himself off the rail, and he'll have a bit of racing room as they go up the back, and Muston has to drift off a little bit. So leading pack of 3. Here comes Musgrove up over the shoulder, Thomas, and now goes after Lauren Day, and Musgrove shoots to the front of the field as they go through 200 metres to run with about 83 seconds on the clock. Musgrove looking to kick away and put paid to the race with a couple of hundred to run. Lauren Day trying to come back at him, but can't do it at the moment. Thomas ranging up now on the shoulder to try and go past Lauren Day for second, and Muston's boxed on well, been prominent all through the race. But Cameron Musgrove leads into the straight. Muston's trying to come at them. So is Thomas for Randwick. Lauren Day's trying to box on, but Musgrove too good for them. 152, just gets over Lauren Day, then Muston. And the rest of the field coming over the line now. Isaac Shaw for Kembla closed very well. May well have been on PB schedule by the reaction. Paul Raptis rounds out the field. But a nice tactical race there from Cameron Musgrove. He was all boxed up on the fence with 400 to run, but didn't panic. Waited to get out down the back straight and did enough to take out the men's 800 metre A race. Have some more official results coming through the men's 800 metre B. Alex Marshall of Run Crew, confirmation of his win in 2:05.2. Bailey Latanis of Illawong 2:05.3. Alex Brunch of Ride in 2:08.6. And in the women's 800 metre A race, 2:11.4 for Laura Roff in her return to racing. Amy Bennett, Davina Smith and Ava Honore, all of Sutherland next over the line in 2:12. And Taisha Buchanan of Wollongong 2:14.6. So that rounds out the 800 metre events of the evening. Not too far away from a start in the 1500 metre events. So if you're here in the stadium, you either should have done the marshalling already for the 1500, or you should be down doing that now. And we won't be too far away from a start in the first of our 1500 metre races. Okay, so we're not too far away from a start now in the first of our graded 1500 metre races. This will be the men's 1500 metre D race, and just run through the start list quickly. I think they're still getting themselves organised over there. So the men's 1500 metre D race, hip number 1, Cameron Dodds of Bankstown. Hip 2, Sheikh Silas of Westfields. Jai Horton for Westfields as well. Tony Sinabaldi of Bankstown. Aaron Sandragason of Delta in hip 5. Nathan Shute, ETS Norths in 6. Ben Westwood of Westfields in hip number 7. Josh Reid of Run Crew in hip number 8. Cooper Penman of Sutherland in hip number 9. Frederick Jones of Ramwick. Jackson Horton of Westfields. Jack Conroy of Glenbrook, and Matt Westwood rounds out a field of 13 for Camden in the men's 1500 metre D race. So off they go in the men's 800 metre D race. Looks to be a slightly slimmed down field from what we have on the start list here, but a couple of the youngsters shooting their way to the front of the field. A good example of all comers racing on screen there with the variation in some of the heights. But it looks like one of the Sutherland youngsters has shot out to the front of the field. I think that's Cooper Penman, just sitting on the front of one of the Westfields athletes. Might be young Ben Westwood sitting in there. Actually, it's Shay Casillas of Westfields, and a wide running Aaron Sandragason of Delta is going to put himself forward early. Hip number 12 as well is Jack Conroy of Glenbrook, and he's put himself up into a position of prominence. But running very well at the front of the field at the moment is Sandra Sakaran in that black kit of Delta. Little gap back then to Conroy and Penman. And as is often the case in these graded 1500 metre races, just starting to spread out a bit before we get into some of the more senior events. So a big gap of probably 30 metres or so opening at the front of the field with Sandra Kasaran of Delta opening the lead up there. Let's have a look at some of the personal bests we've got down here. So 16:45k is the PB we've got for Sandra Kasaran. Shay Casillas with a 4:57 and Jai Horton with a 4:58. You can see there a very big gap on the front of this field as Sandra Sakaran comes down through 700 metres in about 2:06. Just have a look back through this field. So that's Penman there for Sutherland. Then Jai Horton of Westfields sitting there just in front of Tony Sinibaldi. Josh Reed was in that group as well for Run Crew. Also sitting in there is Camden's Matt Westwood, and he's just running on the front of Shay Casillas, who ran very well earlier tonight to double up in the 8 and 1500 metres. A fast start from Jack Conroy has just faded for Glenbrook, and another couple of the Westfields pair just coming through now, and that is Jackson Horton and Matt Westwood of Westfields running together. So a lot of these Westfields youngsters backing up from the 800 metres a little bit earlier tonight. But it's been all one man out the front with Aaron Sandragasaran of Delta, the 28-year-old leading through here. Might be about to set a 1500 metre PB for the first time as he takes the bell in about 3:22.23 thereabouts. And you can see there on screen the big gap back to Cooper Penman of Sutherland and Tony Sinibaldi, the long-time Bankstown athlete, running well on his home track. A little bit of a gap back then to Run Crew's Josh Reed and Shay Casillas. But it's all one story out the front with Aaron Sandrasakaran taking a commanding lead in this men's 1500 metre D race. About 4:15 on the clock as he comes into the straight, and a big kick home here. Has run strongly all throughout. Clearly a very good 5k runner, but now might even be the track debut over 1500 metres, and this is going to be a solid opening of his track racing account. 4:36 thereabouts for the 1500 for life member. And Cooper Penman of Sutherland comes home in about 4:50, 4:45, just ahead of Tony Sinibaldi. And Ben Westwood of I think that might be a mix-up, actually. I think that's Matt Westwood of Camden comes over the line next. And just a bit of a spread in this field, as is often the case in some of the graded 1500s. And this was the fast starting Jack Conroy of Glenbrook, the 18-year-old. 6 minutes down as the PB, so this would be a PB for Jack. And he is able to hang on, so that should be a personal best for Jack Conroy of Glenbrook. And in behind him is Jackson Horton, the youngster from Westfield, just 13. Just outside of his PB. And that'll be Ben Westwood of Westfield's come home to round out the field in the men's 1500 metre D race. So the next race on the track will be the men's 1500 metre C. Another big field here we'll have a look at. And Ben Woodhouse of Ryde will be on the inside just ahead of Darren Purcell if he's backing up from the 800 for Athletics East. Andrew Cross next on the track for Sutherland. Thomas Murphy of the Blue Mountains in hip number 4. Harry Helene of Run Crew in 5. Jed Marr will be next on the track for the Pulse Track Club, coached by Danny Andrews. Benjamin Long will line up next for Westfields in hip number 7. Stephen Doyle of Run Crew. Then comes the Randwick pair of Rory and Julian Wiley, just sitting in there. Jerome Etteridge of Illawong will be next on the track in hip number 11. Lincoln Judge of Run Crew and Chris Gatt of Delta will round out the field in the men's 1500 metre C race. And off they go in a big field of 13. A couple more here backing up from the 800. You can see Darren Purcell there backing up. And a field of about third, couple of the Sutherland and Randwick athletes getting up into a prominent position early on, as they swing around now through 200 in about 34 seconds. And it's Andrew Cross of Sutherland just sitting at the front of the field, just in front of Rory Wiley of Randwick Botany. But they're still pretty well bunched together there. Harry Helene of Run Crew, the youngster, just sitting in behind them through at about 50 seconds. Julian Wiley of Randwick also in with them. But there's a leading group of 6 there, all running closely together, and not much of a split there to the rest of the field. So Cross will lead them through 400 in about 67, 68 seconds or so. Just starting to string out a little bit more. Now you can see there a break coming in the centre of the field. Chris Gatt of Delta just moving to the front of that second group. Let's see if Chris wants to try and cross the bridge and run with the leaders. But that lead pack led by Andrew Cross of Sutherland, PB of 4:22, set at the Sydney Milers meet in February last year. So on this track, knows it well. And the Randwick pair in behind him of Rory and Julian Wiley. So the brothers, you would have to think, running together. And it's Julian now just getting up onto the shoulder of his brother, and now coming up to the shoulder of Cross as well, as we ticked through 2 minutes through the 700. Little gap back then to Thomas Murphy of the Blue Mountains and Harry Helene of Run Crew, the short figure. And it's the Ryde athlete just sitting in behind them as well, Ben Woodhouse, the 14-year-old. So that's your leading pack. And you can see there a big gap of about 25, 30, 35 metres or so back to Chris Gatt of Delta, and then comes Darren Purcell backing up from the 800 a little bit earlier tonight. But just looking back to the front of the field, and the Randwick pair now lead, with Cross just fading a bit in this middle portion of the race, and it'll be Julian Wiley of Randwick, who will lead them through the 1,000 metre. I think it is Rory Wiley. And Harry Helene now, the youngster from Run Crew, starts to get up to the shoulder of Rory, and Thomas Murphy's going to try to go with him as they go through the bell. So the Randwick pair leading this men's 1,500 metre C race. Julian leads Rory Wiley, who's just starting to come back at him a bit now. Young Harry Helene of Run Crew also wanting to go with them as well. The Blue Mountains athlete Thomas Murphy, the 18-year-old, actually his coach Darren Purcell is in the race. And a battle of the Wiley brothers at the front of the field for Randwick, with the older Rory now going around the shoulder of Julian. Shoots to the front of the field and goes for home. Harry Helene, the youngster from Run Crew, trying to get around the shoulder of Julian as well, and does so now, and looks to be the only threat to Rory Wiley as they swing into the straight in the men's 1,500C. Just ticking through 4 minutes on the clock, and Rory Wiley of Randwick leading Harry Helene, and then Julian. Has Helene got a challenge here to Rory Wiley? It doesn't look like it. Rory too good for them. 4:17, 4:18 or so unofficial. Might be a PB there for Rory. And Harry Helene was good enough to hang on for second. Thomas Murphy and the early leader, Julian Wiley. Also with the boys, Chris Gatt just coming over the line for Delta now. Bit of a gap back to Jerome Etteridge, who's just going to manage to hold off Lincoln Judge of Run Crew. Little gap back then to Stephen Doyle. And Benjamin Long of Westfields rounds out the field in the men's 1,500 metre C race. Just confirmation of Aaron Sandragassaran's win in the men's 1,500 metre D race in 4:35. And we'll obviously have to wait a couple of minutes for the results from the C race. Moving now to the first of our women's 1,500 metre races, and the start list is there on screen, with Erin Casillas going in hip number 1 for Illawong Reevesby. Isabel Much of Westfields goes in hip number 2. Claire Spicknell of Kembla Joggers in 3. Arabella Price of Ride Athletics in hip number 4. Cara Casillas will run in the centre of the track in hip number 5 for Westfields. Piper Sweeney for Randwick Botany Harriers on her outside. Capri McCarthy of Sutherland District in hip number 7. Emily Bennett runs all the way in from Bathurst in hip number 8. Ruby McPhillips is next on the track in hip number 9 for Kembla Joggers. And Isabella Farrell will round out the field of 10 in the women's 1,500 metre B race. So off they go in the first of our women's 1,500 metre races for the evening. And a very quick couple of starters there as this field spreads out a bit through the first 100 metres. One of the Kembla athletes is prominent up there. I'm not sure if that's Much or, Spicknell or McPhillips in the early going. We'll have a look as they swing around into the straight for the first time. We start to pick up the hip numbers, and there it is there. So Emily Bennett of Balmain. A lot of these athletes backing up from the 800 metres a bit earlier tonight, just on the front of Ruby McPhillips from Kembla. And then Arabella Price of Ride is just sitting in behind them. Then comes the Westfields pair of Isabella Much and Cara Casillas. And then a little gap back to young Capri McCarthy, the 11-year-old from Sutherland. And a little gap further then to Erin Casillas. So the Casillas family having a big night here at the Milers. But a leading pack of 3 starting to form here in the first of our women's 1,500 metre races. Through the 400 in about 74 or thereabouts. And Emily Bennett and Ruby McPhillips continue to lead the field. Just sitting in front of Arabella Price there in the Ride crop top. And Price now just starting to take a sit in underneath McPhillips. So this leading pack of 3 happy to work together. Emily Bennett still doing the lion's share of the leading. Pretty nice distance running conditions now. There's still a little bit of a breeze around, but only a little bit. But the temperature's pretty much bang on for middle distance running. Should be able to see some quick racing in these A races. So not much to report in terms of changes at the front of this field, with Bennett, McPhillips and Price all running together. Price now just starting to come off the rail and look to get on the shoulder as they go through 2:16 in 700. Little gap back to Isabella Mooch, but she's not able to get back onto this leading group at this stage. Little move now around the shoulder as Arabella Price of Ride goes through 800 in about 2:34, 2:35 or so. And so that's the first change at the front of the field that we've had over the course of the 800 metres. So Arabella Price, the 18-year-old, now sits on the front of the field as they run through 900. 4:55 is the PB for Price, as against a 5:03 for Bennett and a 4:56 for McPhillips. A lot of those PBs, of course, getting lowered quite regularly with the ladies working their way through the junior divisions. So through the 1,000 metres now in just over 3:15, in about 3:17, 3:18, and Emily Bennett just starting to struggle a little bit to hang on to the leading two in Price and McPhillips. They're going to get the welcome sound of the bell now just outside 3:30 or so, about 3:37 unofficially on the clock as they go through 400 metres to run. So potentially PB territory here for both Price and McPhillips. Bit of a gap back then to Bennett, who was the early leader and did a lot of the leading through the first 800. They're through 1,200 now, and the move's starting to come up the back straight. It's still Price from McPhillips. 4:55 is the PB we're looking for Arabella Price of Ride. McPhillips 4:56. But through 200 to go now, and a bit of a move starting to come at the front of the field, and you can see that gap now starting to open up with Ruby McPhillips, who had the sit on Price for quite a bit of the journey and is now shot to the front of the field. Could be PB territory here for McPhillips of Kembla Joggers, coached by Mum and Dad. And just ticking through 4:45 now. Remember, the time we're looking for 4:56, and it looks like that will be good enough for a PB for McPhillips, who takes out the women's 1,500. Going to be also very close to PB territory for Arabella Price, who did a lot of the leading through the middle of the race. And speaking of early leaders, Bennett now coming home, having made the trip in from Bathurst to run third in the women's B 1,500 metres. Isabella Mooch comes home to take out fourth place for Westfields, as more of the field now filtering through. Some good races amongst the youngsters here in the back of the field. This is Kiara Casillas and Capri McCarthy having a good battle, and McCarthy's just going to get over the top and take that out. And Erin Casillas comes home and closes out the field for the women's 1,500 metre B race. So only a few to go here at the second meet of the New South Wales Milers. We'll have a look at the start list for the men's 1,500 metre B race. Corey Deneen for Sutherland goes in hip number 1. Mark Gerard for St Ignatius College Riverview in hip number 2. Adam Brunch of Ride in hip number 3. Jonathan Meeker of Trinity in hip number 4. Noah Kreckelberg and Oscar Bravinsky both go for Run Crew in hip numbers 5 and 6. Ben Maloney of Trinity will run in hip number 7. Thomas Giles on his outside for Mossman. Daniel Franken next on the start list for UTS Norths. Simon Magna for Run Crew in hip number 10. Zachary Nendalal, for St Ignatius College in hip number 11. And Adrian Jones rounds out a field of 13 for Nepean District in the men's 1500 metre B race. So powering through these races, and this the third last race of the night, and it's one of the Riverview boys who's shot to the front of the field early on. I think that's Mark Gerard, just getting in front of the Trinity athlete Jonathan Meeker, who now comes around his outside. Another one of the UTS athletes there. Looks like Daniel Franken getting around the shoulder there, and will go up to the shoulder of Meeker to run second. Then Mark Gerard in behind them, one back on the rail. Then Simon Magna, one back, one out for Run Crew. Little gap then to Corey Deneen, who's sitting on the outside in that Sutherland singlet, and just boxed up there is Adam Brunch for Ride. So through 300 metres in about 46 or 47, and pretty good grouping together there at the front of the field. Whole field separated by about 10 or 15 metres or so. So they're all still running together as they go through 400 metres, just above the minute mark. So not too far away from that 60-second a lap schedule. Quick running in the early stages here. So Meeker sits on the front. Rard of Riverview, coached by Kathy Walsh. PB 403 for him. So if they keep this up, they're all in PB territory. Meeker sitting on the front there. And you can still see a lot of this field still with them. So Corey Deneen from Sutherland, the tall figure, hip number 1, just sitting in there. So is Adam Brunch of Ride. He's just managed to get himself off the rail. And Simon Magna is also in there for Run Crew. So they're going pretty well here. It certainly slowed from the first 400 when they went through in about 61 seconds or so. This is going to be a much slower lap. So they've just gotten a little bit more realistic. We're back around the 4-minute sort of tempo, but no change at the front. It's Meeker from Franken. Then a little bit of a gap back to the Run Crew athlete Simon Magna, who's put himself up into a position of prominence. Then just sitting in behind them is the Ride singlet of Brunch, who's also progressing his way through the field, and just starting to fade a little bit now is Gerard, who was very prominent in the early running. Corey Deneen has just hung around there for Sutherland, the tall figure in the sky blue singlet wearing hip number 1, and he finds himself 5th in the run. So single file as they come through the 1,000 metres in about 2:45. One of them, Mark Gerard, happy to go wide and try and go past a lot of this single file. And a change at the front now as well with Franken in there, and he will lead them through the bell in about 3 minutes flat. So looking at about 4-minute tempo here if they can close quick. Franken leads from Magna. Mark Gerard faded a little bit through that third lap, but now puts himself back into second position and goes around the shoulder of Magna, trying to get up on to, and now does go past Franken. So it's the move from Mark Gerard of St Ignatius College Riverview down the back straight. 200 metres to run with about 3:30 on the clock. So they're pretty close to 4-minute pace here if they can close quick. It's Riverview's Mark Gerard on the front of Franken of Norths. And now a big charge coming from Meeker of Trinity, who did a lot of the early work. Meeker has held something back here for the last 200. Swings around the shoulder, tries to get up to the shoulder of Gerard. Does so and runs past him. Gerard and Meeker in the straight. Meeker labouring hard, trying to get under that 4-minute mark, and might just miss out, I think. Just over 4 minutes for Meeker, but a fine last 200. Gerard was bold in the last lap. Then came Franken. Brunch was in there as well, and Magna comes over the line 5th. Nice finish there as well from Krekelenberg for Run Crew. Corey Deneen just struggled in the last 400 metres. There's more of the field coming over the line now. Thomas Giles and Zachary Nandal for Riverview. Little gap back then to Ben Maloney of Trinity will round out the field in the men's 1500 metre B race. But some fine running there from the youngsters. Good tactical affair. Getting ready for the two main events of the night now, the women's and the men's 1500 metre A races. We'll have a look at the start list for the women's as they get themselves organised over at the back straight. Maybelle Dukes for Run Crew in hip number 1. Zara Warland for Ride in hip number 2 for James Fitzgerald. Mia Fry of UTS North's Ben Liddy's Central Performance Track Team in hip number 3. Brooke Carson of Illawong, coached by Jacinta Doyle, in hip number 4. Aspen Lambert of Trinity, another one of Jimbo's athletes, in 5. On her outside, Eliza Lawton of Sydney Athletics Academy. Kira Bauer of St George in hip number 7. On her outside, Kira Tui of Sutherland. Ruby Madden of Run Crew in hip number 9. Mia Tui, Rona Wazwakaska and Matilda Delphs, all of Sutherland, in hip numbers 10 to 12. And Zoe Woods of Essex West rounds out the field for the women's 1500 metre A race, one of the co-main events here at the second meet of the New South Wales Milers. So off they go in the women's 1500 metre A race. A good field here, plenty of young talent coming through. We saw the open stars in the form of Laura Roff a bit earlier in the 800, but this is really a race of the juniors. The oldest athlete in the field is 18 years of age. So a good opportunity here for a breakthrough win for some of these young stars. Sutherland athlete Kira Tui goes to the front of the field there in hip number 8. Just working up on her inside is Zara Warland of Ride. And so they're the front two as they come into the straight for the first time. Just get a bit of a shot there. So just sitting in behind them is Renina Wazwaska. And they're coming through the 300 in about 53, 54 seconds or so. So field still pretty well bunched together. Brooke Carson for Illawong is in there as well. So is Eliza Lawton of Sydney Athletics Academy. And indeed, Lawton just starting to make a little bit of a move around the outside now as they go through 400 in about 72 seconds or so. And you can still see there a pretty closely bunched leading pack of about 8 or 10 or so. Nice little dash up the inside there from Aspen Lambert of Trinity. Just a bit of a couple of rookie errors in front of her, leaving her the rail to run up down the back straight. And a couple of the athletes now just starting to break away at the front. That's one of the Illawong athletes. I think it might be Brooke Carson, just sitting on the front of Zara Warland at the front of the field now. It is Carson. So they've started to just open up a little bit of a gap there to Wazawaska. Sorry, I'm sure I'm pronouncing that wrong. Aspen Lambert of Trinity also happy to run wide and just get around the outside here as they run through the 700 metres. So it's not crazy quick and still quite a few in this as well. Mia Tui, the taller figure, has also put herself in the leading pack of 6 for Sutherland. So a good share amongst the big distance running clubs here in the women's 1500 metre A. Through the next lap, 800 and about 230 or so. So they've actually run pretty even, 72 and then about a 77 or something like that. It has slowed, but not dramatically. Carson still on the front of the field from Warland as they run through 900. Little gap back then to Mia Tui. And then it's Trinity's Aspen Lambert just sitting in behind them. Renina from Sutherland then next in the run, just sitting on the front of Sydney Athletics Academy's Eliza Lawton. But coming up to the 1,000 metres now, it's Brooke Carson, the 14-year-old from Illawong, coached by Jacinta Doyle, who runs through the 1,000 metres in about 3:11 or thereabouts. PB of 4:42, which could be on here. Bit of a move now coming down the outside for Mia Tui of Sutherland, and trying to go with her is her sister and stablemate Kira Tui. So through the bell, and Tui will lead them in about 3:29, 3:30 or so. Zara Warland sitting in second. Then comes Brooke Carson just in behind them. That's the leading pack of 3. Little gap back then to Mia Tui and Aspen Lambert still sitting in there for Trinity. So through 3:47 or thereabouts, so about a 77-second lap there. They've held the pace pretty strongly through the middle of the race, but Mia Tui of Sutherland with a PB of 4:34. That's not going to be on tonight, but she'll run through 200 with about 4:06, 4:07 on the clock, and lead Brooke Carson and Zara Warland in the women's 1,500 metre A race here at the Milers. So Mia Tui of Sutherland sitting in the lead of the race. Zara Warland now just getting around the shoulder of Brooke Carson, who led for much of the race, and Warland now tries to come at Tui with 110 to run. Warland will range out and try and go past Tui. Tui still with a gap of about a metre or so. Warland trying hard to come at her. Big finish coming from Lambert as well as Kira Tui. Still 3 or 4 of them in it with 50 to run, but Mia Tui is going to hang on and just hold off a fast finishing Warland, then assisted Kira, then Lambert, and Brooke Carson, who did a lot of the early leading, comes in 5th. Quick finish there as well from the Sydney Athletics Academy, youngster Eliza Lawton. But nice running there in the women's 1,500 metre A race by the leading 3 and 4 in particular. Mia Tui, too good for them in the end, takes the win from a fast finishing Zara Warland, who tried hard but just couldn't quite get there. And Kira Tui gives the family 2 of the 3 spots on the podium, as well as for Sutherland. We'll head back over to the start and have a look at the start list for the men's 1,500 metre A race, second main event of the night. A big field in this one, big field of 14. Aidan Hobbs runs in hip number 1 for In Training, makes the trip down from Queensland, coached by John Purcell. Rob Dickinson, and more of an 800 metre specialist, but steps up here to the 1,500, coached by Lindsay Watson in hip number 2. Kieran Tall, the New South Wales 3,000 metre champion, runs for Run Crew in hip number 3. Cameron Gill of Balmain, Danny Andrews' squad, runs in 4. Hamish Longworth and Ben Bishop are both Lindsay Watson athletes, running for Bankstown and Sydney Uni, respectively. Finley McPhillips and James Healy, both of Kembla joggers, run in hip numbers 7 and 8. Joe Burgess was so brave here in the first milers meet, taking out the mile at 4-minute pace. See what he can do here over the 1,500 metres for Sydney University and Sean Crichton. Stefan Music of Randwick Botany will run in hip number 10. Luke Wilson of Kembla joggers in hip number 11. Sam Shield for Run Crew, part of the Benny side of the stable, runs in hip number 12. On his outside, Ben Jagger for Bankstown Athletics, also in the Run Crew coaching stable, and Kieran Rushton of Run Crew will round out a full field of 14 in the men's 1,500 metre A race. Last race of the night, the main event of the second meet of the New South Wales Milers. So off they go in the men's 1,500 metre A race. This is a good field, this good quality open field. Kieran Tall doing a JB, what JB did in the mile here at the first milers meet, and getting on his bike and getting on with it. JB running true to form as he did in the mile, and happy to go with him. Stefan Music is there as well in third, and just sitting in behind them is Cameron Gill of Balmain. So the big dogs are up there early. Little gap back then to Rob Dickinson in the Bankstown singlet, sitting about 5th back on the rail. Then a little gap back on the outside to Kieran Rushton of Run Crew, who's put his hip numbers on backwards. Then running through the first 300 in just about 43 seconds. So Kieran Tall from Joe Burgess, then Music, then Gill. Longworth, Dickinson just sitting in behind them for Bankstown. And then Hobbs, the Queensland athlete, there in the white and red singlet, been a big supporter of the Milers Series. Through the 400 in about 57, 58 seconds, so they're really motoring here. JB gets on the front of the field, takes the lead from Tall. So JB looking to run exactly like he did in the mile here just a little bit over a month ago. He sits on the front of the field through 500, about 1:15. Then Kieran Tall and Stefan Music, and that's a leading group of 3. Aidan Hobbs then, sitting in behind them, has managed to just try and hang on to the front here, but has got a gap of about 5 metres to make up. So JB for the All Whites of Sydney University, just sitting on the front of Kieran Tall for the All Blacks of Run Crew. Then comes Stefan Music. Aidan Hobbs is finally a leading pack of 3 here as they run up to the 800 metres. They were through 400 in about 57 seconds or so, and it's slowed a little bit, probably about 159 thereabouts through 800. So a little bit slower the second time, and it looks to be a coordinated effort here from JB and Tawley. JB just shifts out into the outside of lane 1, flicks the elbow, and Kieran Tall comes through and picks up the running for Run Crew. So the boys working together here. The guy who's getting a dream run back behind it all is Stefan Music of Run Crew, who's just sitting on the front of this field and happy to take the box seat in behind JB and Tawley, who are taking all the wind and all the work out the front. Tawley steps off and lets JB go through the 1,000 metres at 2:34. So JB back into the front of the field. Tall then sits in behind him, then Music, then the Run Crew athlete sitting in behind them on the rail. Then Cameron Gill through the bell in about 2:47, and Music hits the front for the first time in the race. One of the Run Crew athletes in behind him, and then comes Joe Burgess, who did so much of the early work. Then comes Kieran Tall, then Aidan Hobbs and Cameron Gill. So a leading pack of 5 as they head back straight for the last time. Stefan Music is on the front of the field. If someone knows the second Run Crew athlete, someone come and tell me. Joe Burgess then in third, then Kieran Tall. Cameron Gill's working hard, and Aidan Hobbs is making the most of his trip from Queensland as they run through 200 to run. Change at the front now. Run Crew athletes managed to get ahead of Stefan Music. Then Kieran Tall. Joe Burgess did all the work. Kieran Rushton it is on the front for Run Crew. Music is coming back at him. So Rushton and Music as they come into the straight for the last time. Music's trying to fight back. Rushton's trying to go with him. Stefan Music, though, going to be too good for them in the men's 1500. Music wins it for Run Crew, for Randwick, then Rushton for Run Crew. Tawley and JB take a lot of credit for that result in third and fourth. Did all the work early. Then came Cameron Gill. Ben Jagger finished hard. Aidan Hobbs struggled a bit over the last 200, but put himself in the race as the rest of the field comes over the line. But some nice running there from Music and Rushton. Rushton, a late entry into this race, but on the back of a strong performance in the New South Wales 3K. Didn't have a 1500 PB to speak of, but he will now. And a fine performance from Stefan Music, who ran a really good tactical race in behind Joe Burgess and Kieran Tall, both of whom should take a bow for being willing to run that quickly through the first 1,000 metres and really set up the race for Stefan Music. So well done to the boys for that. We'll bring you some confirmation of the results from the women's 1500 metre A race. Mia Tui of Sutherland in 4:44 taking out the win. Zara Warland getting over the top of Kira Tui, both running 4:45, as did Aspen Lambert for Trinity. Brooke Carson 4:46 for Illawong. Eliza Lawton of Sydney Athletics Academy 4:50. As was Wasawaska. Delphs for Sutherland 4:55. Kira Bauer of St George in 4:56, and Mabel Dukes rounded out the field in 4:57. But a fine performance there from Stefan Music in the men's 1500 metre A race, and another fine night of racing at the New South Wales Milers Series. 189 athletes tonight. A big thank you in particular to our technical officials, most of whom are off to Maitland tomorrow for the New South Wales Country Championship. So a big thank you to them and to the volunteers at Bankstown. Thank you everyone once again for supporting the New South Wales Milers Series. There's 3 meets to go in the series, and we'll look forward to seeing you at the rest of the series. For those racing at Country Championships, good luck to you. And we'll see you next time at the Crest. Thanks everyone for coming out to the second meet of the New South Wales Milers Series.